The moment the signal cracked through the receiver, the air inside the boat tightened like a held breath. It wasn't supposed to exist, not after 4 decades of silence, yet it throbbed through the speakers like a heartbeat trying to claw its way back into the world. I stared at the coordinates flashing across the screen, deep inside the swamp where no map dared to lead, and the unease crept fast. What if this road wasn't on any map for a reason? What if someone erased every trace of the crash because they never wanted it found? The fog ahead shifted, bending the tree line in a way that made my pulse lag. Something in the stillness felt wrong, as if the land recognized us. But I held the receiver tight. If the signal wanted to be found again, then we would follow it, no matter what waited beyond the first bend. The air thickened as the boat drifted closer to the fragment, the silence pressing in so tightly it felt like sound itself had been swallowed. The signal on the receiver pulsed harder, steady and cold, like a mechanical heartbeat guiding us deeper into a story the world had already given up on. The trees leaned in with an almost deliberate slowness, as if bracing themselves for what we were about to uncover. A strange calm settled over me, the kind that comes right before a truth you're not ready to hear. Whatever was waiting in that water had survived time in a way nothing should, and the uneasy question dug deeper. Why would a signal reappear after 40 years unless someone wanted it heard now? The boat drifted into a part of the swamp where the light shifted into strange colors, as though the dawn itself had become trapped in the water below. The signal grew steady, no longer fading or cracking, almost purposeful now, guiding us along a narrow corridor of trees, bending into an arch overhead. A faint hum spread through the hull, vibrating against my boots like something living beneath us. The deeper we moved, the more familiar the swamp seemed, even though I knew I'd never been here. There was a memory buried in the air, something half-formed and waiting, and every instinct inside me whispered that we were following more than a signal. We were retracing footsteps someone never meant to leave behind. A soft thud echoed beneath the boat, subtle but sharp enough to freeze every breath. The swamp went still again, but this stillness felt different, as if something under the surface was waiting for us to acknowledge it. The signal spiked once more, the rhythm slower now, almost like knocking. My pulse quickened as the hum returned, resonating through the hull in timed intervals. It didn't feel random anymore. It felt coordinated. I leaned over the edge, watching the dark water ripple in gentle circles, each one spaced perfectly apart, as though answering the signal's pulse. Something wasn't just sending it. Something was responding to us. The trees slowly parted to reveal a clearing where the swamp opened into a wide basin, the fog swirling into spirals as if stirred by an unseen hand. The air grew warmer, dense enough to taste, and with each throb from the receiver, an answering vibration trembled through the clearing. My breath caught when I noticed the shapes along the tree trunks. Scratches, not random but patterned, repeating in a rhythm that matched the signal. It felt like stepping into a memory that didn't belong to us, one left behind by someone who had vanished before any of us were born. The truth wasn't hiding anymore. It was guiding us in. The clearing tightened around us as we pushed deeper into the basin, the carved symbols repeating like echoes of a forgotten language. The signal softened into a steady pulse, no longer frantic, almost guiding, like it recognized we were finally close. A warm breeze drifted through the trees, stirring the fog into spirals that curled toward the boat as though tugged by invisible hands. Every instinct warned me to turn back, but something in the pattern on the trunks felt painfully intentional, like breadcrumbs left by someone desperate to be found. The hum beneath the hull swelled again, vibrating through my bones, and the world around us seemed to lean inward. Whatever had survived out here wanted to be seen. The signal shifted again, not louder but clearer, its rhythm tightening into a pattern that felt almost deliberate. A chill crawled across my skin despite the heavy heat, the sense of being watched pressing harder with every minute. We glided past roots that rose like ribs from the water, the boat's engine softening to a low purr. The carvings continued along the trunks in perfect intervals, each one a match to the pulse from the receiver. My breath slowed as a strange realization settled in. The marks weren't warnings. They were directions. Someone lost in this swamp had tried to guide whoever came after. A sudden hiss broke the silence, followed by a ripple that moved straight toward the boat. Before vanishing under the bow, the receiver's pulse quickened in an unmistakable pattern. 3 short, 1 long, repeating like a coded tap on a distant wall. The air shifted, turning still and heavy, as though the swamp itself was listening. I felt my heartbeat sync with the signal, each throb pulling me deeper into a mystery far older than the missing pilot. Something here wasn't lost. It was waiting for someone to follow the trail. It carved through time. We drifted into a part of the swamp where the trees thinned, revealing a stretch of open water that shimmered with a faint metallic sheen. The pulse from the signal slowed, growing steadier, almost calm. The hum beneath the boat synchronized with it, sending vibrations through the hull that tingled in my fingertips when I touched the metal. It felt like crossing an unseen threshold. A strange clarity washed over me, the sense that someone had stood here before, waiting for rescue that never came. The past wasn't distant anymore. It was breathing down our necks. The pulse from the receiver slowed to a steady beat, then stopped completely. The swamp held its breath. Every sound vanished. No insects, no distant water splashes, not even the creak of branches. A cold dread sunk into my stomach as the stillness deepened. Then the receiver crackled once, releasing a faint tone, softer than before, but unmistakably human in its pattern. It wasn't a distress signal anymore. It was a message. And whoever sent it had waited far longer than anyone should survive. The silence grew so absolute. It felt carved into the air, pressing against my ears until every heartbeat sounded too loud. The receiver flickered once more, releasing a soft tone that pulsed in slow intervals, almost like breathing. The fog shifted around us, curling in long ropes that slithered across the water as if drawn towards something ahead. I felt the hairs on my arms rise before I understood why. We weren't drifting anymore. The boat was being pulled, not by current, not by wind, by something beneath us. The air thickened with a sense of recognition, like we'd crossed into a place that remembered the people who vanished here. And as the receiver vibrated softly in my hand, a chilling truth crept in. The signal wasn't guiding us to a crash site. It was guiding us back to someone still waiting. The inlet swallowed us in seconds, the tree line bending inward like the ribs of some giant creature. Branches scraped above us in long, dragging sounds that echoed down my spine. The receiver pulsed again. 3 slow beats, then a pause, almost like someone knocking from a long hallway. My breath tightened as I noticed the carvings reappearing on the trunks, deeper now, sharper, etched with desperate force. Whoever made them hadn't been trying to leave a trail. They'd been trying to mark where they were being taken, and we were moving in the same direction. A sudden drop beneath the hull jolted the boat sideways. Water splashed up in cold sheets, and for a moment, the world spun in disorienting silence. Then the receiver let out a single, high-pitched tone that cut through the swamp like a knife. The trees around us leaned outward, as if recoiling from the sound. My pulse hammered, as I felt the hull vibrate more violently. Like something below was rising toward us. Every instinct screamed to pull back. Yet the tone continued, steady, insistent, unmistakably human. Someone was signaling from below the surface. The tone abruptly vanished, leaving a void so sharp it felt like sound had been vacuumed from the air. The boat steadied, though the water beneath it still trembled. I leaned over the edge, searching the dark depths for movement. Then I saw it. Faint glimmers shifting far below, not reflections but shapes, like fragments of metal drifting upward. My breath caught as one piece breached the surface, A rusted panel with a faded number barely visible, the same number from the missing pilot's aircraft. Time felt like it folded inward, bending the moment around us. Whatever happened 40 years ago hadn't ended. It was still unfolding. The panel drifted beside the boat, tapping against the metal with a hollow clang that echoed too long in the tightening air. The hum beneath us returned. Slow, heavy, like the heartbeat of something impossibly old. The receiver flickered violently, then displayed coordinates that didn't match any point on the map. They weren't directions. They were timestamps. My stomach twisted as the numbers shifted again, aligning with the exact minute the missing pilot's plane vanished decades ago. The signal wasn't coming from the wreck. It was coming from the moment it disappeared. The swamp shifted around us as though the air itself had decided to breathe. The coordinates on the receiver flickered again, numbers rearranging into a sequence that felt more like a countdown than a location. The fog thickened, swallowing the sound of the engine until only the slow pulse beneath the hull remained. A pressure built in my chest, the sense that we were being drawn toward a place the world had let sink into myth. The symbols carved into the trees grew deeper and more frantic, each one gouged with the desperation of someone who knew time was slipping away. As we followed the narrow channel ahead, the sickening realization surfaced. Whatever the pilot saw before he vanished, we were about to see too. We slipped into a space where the swamp grew unnaturally quiet, as though we'd crossed into a pocket of forgotten time. The air felt heavy, thick enough to slow every breath. The receiver continued pulsing with impossible precision. Then the pattern shifted. 3 long beats, 1 short, repeated like a final attempt at communication. A chill crept up my spine as I realized the sequence wasn't random. It matched the last transmission ever recorded from the missing pilot's plane. A message so garbled the world assumed it was static. But here, in this suffocating corridor, the rhythm felt almost expectant. The boat drifted forward as if pulled by a silent current. My pulse raced as the fog thinned to reveal dark shapes rising from the water. Wreckage, sections of metal plating, rotted cables, and the skeletal remains of a cockpit frame hung suspended among the roots of ancient trees. The pieces didn't look scattered by a crash. They looked placed, arranged deliberately in a circle that formed a boundary around the clearing ahead. The air vibrated with low-frequency hums, and for the first time I wondered if the pilot had truly been alone when he vanished. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the hull and rising into the air like a trapped heartbeat. The clearing beyond the circle revealed another shape, an improvised shelter made of bent metal and woven branches, battered by decades but unmistakably crafted by human hands. My breath hitched as I imagined the missing pilot here, carving symbols into the trees, marking time with the rhythm of a signal that had long since faded into silence. The shelter wasn't abandoned. It felt paused, as if its occupant had stepped away for only a moment, expecting to return. A faint rustle stirred the air, so delicate it could be imagination. Except every instinct in my body snapped to attention. The hum beneath the boat stuttered, the signal on the receiver skipping like a wavering heartbeat. Something moved in the fog behind the shelter, slow and deliberate, as though emerging from a place that time had refused to claim. My throat tightened as the shadows shifted, revealing the outline of a figure standing just beyond the tree line. For the first time, the signal pulsed without static. It didn't feel distant anymore. It felt close, intentional. Watching, the fog thickened around the figure until only the outline remained, unmoving, as if it had been waiting for us long before we entered this part of the swamp. The signal pulsed again. Slow, steady, too controlled to be random. My throat tightened as the rhythm synced with the subtle rise and fall of the figure's silhouette like breath. We edged forward, the hull whispering against the water, each second stretching into something heavy and expectant. The air hummed with an energy that felt wrong, too familiar, as if we were stepping directly into someone else's memory. The fog shifted once more, and the figure faded back, drawing us deeper, as though inviting us to follow where the missing pilot once walked. The grove swallowed us whole, the world shrinking into silhouettes of black trees and drifting mist. The signal pulsed faster now, steady and urgent, echoing through the hall with a trembling weight. I leaned forward, searching for any sign of movement, but the fog swallowed everything the moment it appeared. The trees around us carried deeper carvings, slashes that looked less like symbols and more like frantic attempts to communicate. A shiver traced my spine as the truth pressed in. These were marks of someone who wasn't trying to guide rescue. These were the marks of someone who knew they were being followed. A sudden snap echoed from somewhere deep in the grove, sharp and unmistakably close. My pulse hammered as I spun toward the sound, expecting movement, but the fog stayed perfectly still. The receiver pulsed again, 3 rapid beats, 1 long, then repeated the sequence with jarring clarity. It was the same message the pilot tried to send before disappearing. Only now, it wasn't crackled or distorted. It was clean, perfect. Almost like someone was replaying it for us from just a few steps ahead. The realization crept in cold. The signal wasn't leading us to where he crashed. It was leading us to where he ran. The fog thinned just long enough for us to see the grove open into a hidden clearing, one untouched by light and strangely silent. At its center lay a collapsed structure built from aircraft ribs and swamp wood, half sunk into the mud. My chest tightened as the receiver pulsed faster, reacting to something inside the ruin. A faint, metallic glimmer flickered under the collapsed roof, something reflecting our lantern light. I knew before we pulled closer that it wasn't just another piece of wreckage. It felt personal, like a message left behind by someone who'd tried everything to be found. I knelt at the edge of the collapsed structure, heart pounding as I reached for the source of the glimmer. My fingertips brushed metal, smooth, cold, unmistakably shaped by human hands. I pulled it free and felt the world narrow into a tight, breathless moment. It was a pilot's badge, tarnished but intact, the name worn but still legible. The badge of the man who vanished 40 years ago. The receiver pulsed once, long, slow, deliberate. Then the fog behind us shifted again, and I realized the figure hadn't disappeared. It had circled. And now, it was standing behind us. The silhouette in the fog didn't move at first. It hovered with an eerie patience, as if waiting for us to realize it had been following long before we ever sensed it. The air shifted around us, heavy and cold, carrying a faint metallic scent that didn't belong to the swamp. My breath slowed as the signal pulsed again, each throb echoing through my ribs like someone tapping from inside my chest. The figure stepped forward, slow and deliberate, and for the first time the fog parted on its own, peeling away in thin ribbons. A chill slid down my spine as a thought formed with sickening clarity. Whatever was standing there wasn't just connected to the missing pilot. It was tied to the moment he vanished. And now it wanted us to step into that moment with it. The figure stopped just beyond the nearest tree, its shape flickering like a reflection in disturbed water. The air thickened, pressing in from all sides until each breath felt like inhaling warm stone. The signal pulsed again. 3 long beats, 1 short, echoing louder now, too close, too sharp. My grip tightened around the badge as a strange realization struck with icy force. The figure moved in perfect sync with the pulse, not responding to it, creating it. The swamp seemed to dim around us, the trees leaning inward as if bracing for something impossible. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't wandering. It was waiting to reveal something. A sudden gust tore through the grove, scattering fog in violent spirals. The figure vanished, not retreating, but dissolving like smoke. The boat rocked as a deep vibration rumbled through the ground, shaking loose droplets from the branches above. The receiver pulsed again, fast now, frantic, the rhythm so sharp it felt like alarms firing inside my skull. Suddenly, the fog behind us erupted, peeling back to reveal a jagged tier of light, hovering a few feet above the water. Not sunlight, not reflection. Something else. Something else. Something like a memory ripped open. My skin prickled as the vibration grew louder, forming a sound I recognized from old recordings. The last scream of the missing pilot's engine before it vanished. The tier widened with a low, resonant groan that hummed against my teeth. My mind reeled as shadows flickered inside it. Branches, sky, metal, like flashes of a world frozen mid-disaster. The pulse from the receiver synced with the light, each beat dragging the tier wider until its glow reached the collapsed shelter. The air thickened with impossible noise, a layered echo of wind, engine, and something like a human breath caught between moments. I felt the weight of the pilot's badge in my hand like a key being pulled toward a lock. The truth hit me with a cold shock. The tier wasn't a vision. It was the moment of the crash, replaying itself over and over, trapped in the swamp like an echo in a cavern that never found an end. The hum shifted again, turning into a long, steady vibration that sank through the water, the ground, even the air. The tier stabilized into a pulsing oval of warped reality, and beneath its glow, shapes began to emerge. Metal fragments drifting upward, as if gravity no longer mattered. Roots twisting into new angles. And in the very center, a faint human outline struggling against frozen time. My breath caught as I realized what the silhouette resembled. Someone trapped in the moment of vanishing. Someone who never left. The swamp wasn't hiding a crash site. It was holding a doorway into the final seconds of a life that refused to end. The world seemed to tilt as the tier widened, pulling the air toward it in a slow, dragging current that tasted like metal and stormlight. My grip tightened around the badge until the edges bit into my palm. The silhouette suspended inside the tier flickered, fighting against a moment that refused to release him. The pulse from the receiver grew steady and strong, sensing with my own heartbeat until it felt like something inside me was trying to answer. The ground trembled as the trees bowed inward, their branches stretching toward the light as if offering themselves. The truth settled in with a weight that nearly took my breath. This wasn't just a window into the past. It was a bridge, and it was opening for us. A deafening crack split the air as something inside the tier shifted. The suspended silhouette snapped into sharper focus. Arms lifted, body twisted, as if fighting the moment the world took him. The receiver vibrated so hard it nearly slipped from my fingers. Then the pulse changed again. 2 short beats. A long one and another short. A message. A call. My breath hitched as recognition surged through me. This wasn't a distress cry. It was a beacon, aimed at whoever carried the badge, at whoever was willing to see the moment he never escaped. The tier pulsed brighter, welcoming, and I felt the impossible pull of a choice I never expected to face. The airboat groaned behind us as the entire swamp reacted, water trembling, roots shuddering, branches bowing like nervous spectators. The tier's glow stretched toward the badge in my hand, bending the light around it, pulling on it with a force that felt eerily familiar. For a heartbeat, the suspended figure turned, his outline tilting as though he sensed us through the fracture in time. A wave of cold washed over me as the thought settled. He wasn't just trapped, he was reaching out, and the badge was his last tether to the world. He'd lost. The moment stretched thin, as the badge lifted from my fingers, suspended between worlds. Time twisted around us, filling the air with the fractured hum of something old and hungry. The silhouette inside the tier pressed forward, as though pushed by unseen hands. My pulse thundered as light burst from the badge in a blinding flare, revealing a face, brief, flickering, unmistakable, younger than the stories, ghost pale and terrified. I stumbled backward as the tier pulled harder, the hum rising into a scream that felt like wind and memory and metal tearing. The swamp wasn't just holding the moment he vanished. It was trying to repeat it. The tear surged one final time, erupting into a blinding pulse that shook the swamp to its roots. The badge shot upward, disappearing into the tearing light. Then, the glow snapped inward like a collapsing lung. The silhouette screamed without sound, reaching out as the tear sealed itself shut, cutting off the frozen moment forever. Silence crashed in, deeper than before, swallowing the grove whole. My knees buckled as darkness settled over the swamp, the echo of the pulse fading like a heartbeat finally ending. The badge was gone. The doorway was gone, and the swamp, relieved of its burden, exhaled a long breath as the water stilled. Whatever truth lay inside that fractured moment, it had chosen to stay sealed, but we had carried its echo back into the world.